What do you think of artists who do charge anywhere between $50 to $75 for tickets?
There are people
Who charges that much money?
Who does
Apparently.
that?
Madonna.
Wow. Madonna charges $50.
Apparently. 50 to 75.
Madonna wears fur too. Did you know that?
Yeah.
We were talking about, boy, we should charge $25 and really milk it. Yeah, really take them for all they got. We charge $17.
So what
Fugazi's playing tonight. They're charging $5.
$6.
So how does that make you feel?
Weak. Exploitive.
Yeah. See, they go from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. Pretty soon.
It's all over, man.
Well, there's inflation.
What with the Ticketmaster charge and.
They say those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
The members of Pearl Jam remember what it's like to be young and not have a lot of money. Many Pearl Jam fans are teenagers who do not have the money to pay $30 or more that it's often charged for tickets today. It is well known in our industry that some portion of the service charges Ticketmaster collects on its sale of tickets is distributed back to the promoters in the venues. It is this incestuous relationship and the lack of any national competition for Ticketmaster that has created the situation we're dealing with today. As a result, our band, which is concerned about keeping the price of its tickets low, will almost always be in conflict with Ticketmaster, which has every incentive to try to find ways to increase the price of the ticket it sells.
Have you heard from other performers on this issue? Are there other bands who are concerned about this? And if so, or individual performers, could you share that with us?
I think mainly Kelly Curtis, our manager, has been talking to a lot of different people. I know we've gotten a lot of support from Aerosmith and Grateful Dead and Garth Brooks and Neil Young.
Not just that, monopolies like Ticketmaster are fueling many hardworking Americans being squeezed out. And guess who saved them?
The Department of Justice is committed to holding criminals accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
The Trump Department of Justice. But let's go back in time.
But in the 1990s, everything in live music changed because of three groups: Ticketmaster, Live Nation, and Pearl Jam. First, there's Ticketmaster. Today, concert ticketing is mostly digital, but before the 90s, tickets used to be sold through call centers, at stores, or at box offices. Instead of charging venues, they started making money by charging fans, the infamous service fee. This incentivized venues to sign exclusive contracts with Ticketmaster over other companies. Ticketmaster also gobbled up the competition, acquiring 7 other ticketing agencies between 1985 and 1991, including their main rival, Ticketron. With their rivals out of the way, there was nothing to stop Ticketmaster from raising service fees, which they did.
And while the artists continually speak out against these practices,
most of the issues we face stem from the fact that Live Nation Ticketmaster often acts as 3 things at the same time: the promoter, the venue, and the ticketing company. Let's imagine we just played a sold-out show at a venue Live Nation owns and operates. When an artist plays these venues, they're required to use Live Nation as the promoter. Far from simply advertising, the promoter coordinates and pays the upfront costs to put together a concert, such as renting and staffing a venue and striking a deal with the performer. Since both our pay and theirs is a share of the show's profits, we should be true partners, aligned in our incentives. Keep costs low while ensuring the best fan experience. But with Live Nation not only acting as the promoter, but also as the owner and or operator of the venue, it seriously complicates these incentives. In a world where the promoter and the venue are not affiliated with each other, we can trust that the promoter will look to get the best deal from the venue. However, in this case, the promoter and the venue are part of the same corporate entity. So these line items are essentially Live Nation negotiating to pay itself. At the end of the show, costs will have eaten into most of the money made that evening, and due to Live Nation's control across the industry, we have practically no leverage in negotiating them. If they want to take 10% of the revenues and call it a facility fee, they can and have. If they want to charge $30,000 for the house nut, they can and have. And if they want to charge us $250 for a stack of 10 clean towels, they can and have.
We, the music lovers, the consumers, continue to pay the price.
These same seats were $200 2 years ago. Now they're $672. The service fee is 17% the price of a ticket. Ticketmaster's scam fees can cost up to 78% the original price of a ticket, and they get to charge their fees twice for their ticket resales. This is because of something they call dynamic pricing, and it's led to Ticketmaster profiting $6.2 billion because they have a monopoly. Two of the largest companies in the live music industry have a little $2.5 billion merger, and now they dominate most of the market and get to control pricing. They created a monopoly. Because they control so much of the market and charge such high prices, their competition can get away with doing that too. Their domination of the market has made it so that venues and artists have been intimidated because they have crushed venues who refuse to work with them in the past. Clearly, someone should have been on top of this. Why did they let these two companies merge?
Then in 2022, it seemed that something was about to give.
In October of 2022, American Economic Liberties Project, where I work, and a bunch of allies started the Break Up Ticketmaster Coalition, which has sent over 100,000 letters to the Justice Department with narratives from artists and fans and venues and independent promoters talking about the Live Nation monopoly and encouraging the Justice Department to do something about it.
And it turns out, unlike in 1994 when it was just Pearl Jam testifying, the Department of Justice decided they couldn't ignore the mass outcry of anger at these corporations anymore, and they filed a lawsuit.
The lawsuit calls for a breakup of Live Nation and Ticketmaster at a minimum, and it talks about how all of these different business lines reinforce each other, and structurally something needs to happen here to allow competition to occur.
And let me be clear, this was a massive move by the Biden DOJ. The complaint would be filed in the district court for the Southern District of New York. It alleged the two companies unlawfully exercised its monopoly power in violation of Section 2 of the Sherman Act. As a result of its conduct, music fans in the U.S. are deprived of ticketing innovation and forced to use outdated technology while paying more for tickets than fans in other countries. This is true. At the same time, Live Nation Ticketmaster exercises its power over performers, venues, and independent promoters in ways that harm competition. Live Nation Ticketmaster also imposes barriers to competition that limit the entry and expansion of its rivals. It continues. The complaint further alleges that Live Nation Ticketmaster's exclusionary practices fortify and protect what it refers to as its flywheel. The flywheel is Live Nation Ticketmaster's self-reinforcing business model that captures fees and revenue from concert fans and sponsorship, uses that revenue to lock up artists to exclusive promotion deals, and then uses its power cachet of live content to sign venues into long-term exclusive ticketing deals, thereby starting the cycle all over again. Live Nation Ticketmaster's anti-competitive conduct creates even more barriers for rivals to compete on the merits. When the Trump administration came in, there were legitimate questions being asked, especially when Gail Slater, the head of the Justice Department's Antitrust Division, departed the admin. There were reports she clashed with AG Pam Bondi. She announced her resignation on Twitter just weeks before the trial against Live Nation Ticketmaster was going to start. The Verge has more behind-the-scenes intel. Over the summer, two of Slater's top deputies were fired for what the DOJ said was insubordination. One of them later described pushing back against a wireless networking deal between Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Juniper Networks, peddled by MAGA-in-name-only lobbyists and DOJ officials. The week before Slater announced her departure, a third deputy also left the agency. The timing drew extra scrutiny because Mike Davis, one of the lobbyists close to Trump who worked on the HPE Juniper deal, is also reportedly working for Live Nation. Wow, isn't that coincidental? David Dayen of American Prospect would report Roger Alford was fired for resisting pay-to-play corruption at the Justice Department, which offended his belief system. Alford would go on to write, will the same senior DOJ officials ignore the president's executive order just because Live Nation and Ticketmaster have paid a bevy of cozy MAGA friends to roam the halls of the fifth floor in defense of their monopoly abuses? It was then we knew the outcome sometime before the announcement. From The Guardian, Live Nation, which owns Ticketmaster, has reached a surprise settlement with the Department of Justice in its antitrust case just 1 week after the trial began. Ryan Grimm of Dropsite News wrote on Twitter, "This case against Ticketmaster Live Nation was supposed to go to trial this week. The DOJ, through multiple administrations, has been preparing for years. Trump just settled it instead after firing the head of the Antitrust Division. There's apparently no amount of corruption too obvious to scare Trump away from it." The Guardian's Michael Senato adds, "The lawsuit includes attorneys general from 30 states, including California, Massachusetts, Utah, and Wyoming. 10 of those attorneys general have agreed to the settlement, according to a Wall Street Journal report. Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, criticized the settlement and declined to agree to it." Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/tytsports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.